Alfred Collins has yet to see the field. Mykel Williams, the first round draft choice, kept out of the OTAs. They said it was precautionary, but he's obviously got some kind of a bulky hamstring. This was a guy that missed, didn't play tons at Georgia. Played about 30% of the snaps, and the production wasn't there. And it was a draft choice based on traits. So I've got concerns about, Mykel Williams. I mean, already, just since they've drafted him, he's shown very little on the practice field, and they've acquired Bryce Huff, a guy at his position, and they spent significant money to do so. So, I've got some concerns about Mykel Williams. I've got some concerns about Ricky Pearsall. Those are the last two number one draft choices. I've got some concerns about Alfred Collins. This was my concern on draft day that I voiced literally moments after the pick is, will this guy be healthy? And he hasn't been healthy since they got him. He's yet to take part in a practice. Then there's Upton Stout and Nick Martin. And of those, draft choices, the only one right now running with the number ones is Upton Stout. So let's go to our guy Chase here and see what he thinks. Chase, how concerned should 49er fans be with the fact that Collins hasn't gotten on the field and Mykel Williams, when he was on the field, he wasn't practicing necessarily with his teammates. They seemed like they were kind of working on his footwork, and then he sat out the last couple of days of OTAs with a hamstring. How concerned are you about Mykel? How concerned are you about Collins? This is 1 and 1A as far as the rebuild on the defensive line.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some good, there's some bad here. And keep in mind that we're sitting here in June and training camp will get underway at the end of July. And so there's going to be a long while here, about 5 weeks for some of these rookies to get healthy. During rookie minicamp, when Mykel Williams was on the field, everybody seemed to be really impressed by him. The length, the physicality, the size. He looks like he has an NFL body already. We were at least able to see a little bit of what he can bring to the Niners, linking up with Nick Bosa, trying to learn some pass rush moves because he's certainly raw there. Chris Kosaric being able to work with him. And so that's certainly a positive. I would have loved for him to get some reps in at mandatory minicamp, go up against some offensive linemen, do some drills, and continue his development. With Alfred Collins, I'd say there's more of a concern there because, as you mentioned, he hasn't done anything yet. And when you're 6'5", 330, and you rely on your leg strength to produce against the run, to push the pocket, and you're dealing with this calf injury that hasn't gone away, I'm a little bit worried about that because that same calf injury also kept him from doing a lot of drills in the pre-draft process. And when you have that much weight on that calf injury and it's soft tissue stuff, I'm concerned. Now, Kyle Shanahan did say that he's going to be back and ready to go for training camp, but we've heard Kyle Shanahan say that so much over the years about a variety of players who have been dealing with these injuries. So if I were to say the biggest concern that I have for an individual player, it would be Alfred Collins. And some people will say, don't worry about it. Training camp and the preseason will come around. He can get reps there. When you get reps doing whatever you do, whether you're in a cubicle, whether you're doing what Larry and I do, you're on camera on a microphone, the more reps that you can get, the more seasoned that you'll be, the more comfortable that you'll feel, the more that you will learn about yourself, the better that you will get. So I put a lot of stock in these reps. The pluses is that CJ West, everything that we heard about him in the pre-draft, strong hands, and the strength of his punch is really impressive. We saw some of that throughout the spring. I think the power that he's able to use to get separation along the interior, that was on display. Nick Martin was flying around. He plays like a bat out of hell. Jordan Watkins made some really good plays. He's one of the biggest winners throughout the spring. And a guy like that, I think, can have an impact on this offense right from the jump. I mean, you were there. You saw Jordan James spring a couple of runs.
Yeah.
Said, I think we got some steals of this draft class. I still feel that way. But again, these reps are important for these young players because there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to grasp just from a speed, physicality standpoint when you make that jump from college to the NFL. But you're also trying to learn a new offense, learn a new defense, and you're just getting acclimated with NFL life.
How concerning is it that Ricky Pearsall, who says, "Hey man, I'm not injury prone," but he's having a hard time getting on the field, hamstring problems, and it's like if it's precautionary, it's precautionary, but there's always concerns. I mean, the one thing about pro football is you got to play.
Yeah.
You got to play. It's a painful deal, and nobody's 100% after a certain point. And I just kind of wonder about Pearsall. His job is to play the slot. Every time his name came up when he was drafted, it was like, oh, he's the next Julian Edelman. And it's like, that really made me pause because I've met Julian Edelman. I've talked to Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman's like one of the toughest guys that's ever played the wide receiver position. So now what? Ricky Pearsall is going to be one of the toughest guys who's ever played the position.
Different body type too between those.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's likely. How concerned are you about the fact that Pearsall, who has got to be a huge player for them, they didn't go get a big time receiver. They're letting him be the guy. Well, he that's fine as long as he's the guy.
Yeah. So with these rookies, it's like a big unknown, right? They're dealing with some of these issues right now, and you're like, well, we don't really know their histories. I mean, you can look back at college, and Mykel Williams was banged up a little bit, but he still played through those injuries. I think the lack of college production from last year at Georgia was partially due to the fact that he injured his ankle game 1, and then he was dealing with that nagging injury throughout the rest of the season. With Ricky Pearsall, though, it's a little bit different. And it's so funny how people will say, Chase, you're being way too hard on Ricky Pearsall. He got shot in the chest in downtown San Francisco last year. Yeah, but this is what you don't remember, is that prior to the gunshot wound, he did nothing in training camp. He did not play in a single preseason game. Why? He was dealing with a shoulder injury. He had that subluxation in that shoulder. And guess what? He was dealing with a hamstring issue. And so there's a history there to be concerned about with Ricky Pearsall, because this is back-to-back off seasons in which he's been dealing with a hamstring ailment. And the comps to Julian Edelman, I don't see it. Like, Pearsall can play on the inside, and I think he's better suited there. He could play on the outside. But Julian Edelman is more of a shorter, stocky wide receiver who's thicker. And Ricky Pearsall is thinner, more slender, but some of the quick twitch stuff is what allows him to win at the line of scrimmage, to beat man, which is a big reason why the Niners drafted him. It's the quick feet. It's the explosion. It's the smooth nature in which he can get in and out of cuts. It's the ability to jump up, be explosive with that 40-inch vertical, to go up and get it, come down with some of those 50-50 balls. He relies on himself being explosive as an athlete. And so the soft tissue injuries and the hamstring, that's a little bit worrisome for me. And I kind of called cap on what Kyle Shanahan said the other day. Oh, he could have participated in mandatory minicamp, but we want him to get ready for training camp. No, he wasn't healthy enough to be on the field. Otherwise, he should have been on the field. We're not talking about a Fred Warner who didn't do anything during mandatory minicamp. Fred Warner doesn't need to practice. Ricky Pearsall does. He barely played last year. He's trying to build this rapport with Brock Purdy, which is obviously really important. Last year, with a lack of that, we saw that a couple of occasions they weren't on the same page, and that led to a Brock Purdy misfire or Ricky Pearsall breaking off a route, not being in the spot that he needed to. Again, these reps are really important, especially for young players who, like Ricky Pearsall, didn't play a lot last year. He's a little bit raw. He's not necessarily acclimated with the NFL level. When on the field, I think that he can be one of the more explosive wide receivers on this team, but he has to stay healthy. And until he stays healthy consistently, I'm a little bit worried. And that shoulder subluxation, that's something that could rear its ugly head again. He didn't get that operated on. And that's just kind of a shoulder injury where if you get taken to the ground and that pops out of place, then it could lead to bigger issues. And so I like Ricky Pearsall as a player. I'll always say I think it was a reach to take him with the 31st overall pick because I think he was more of a second-round guy. But you clearly see the ability. You see the potential. He has some pop to his game, but he's not going to be able to show it if he continues to get hurt.